So it's easy to follow God when things are going great. Your job's going good, you're having a great community, family, friends, all this kind of stuff. But what happens when those closest to you turn away from you, reject you, and then begin to belittle you?
I get on my knees and I cry out, why God, why?
Or perhaps is there a better alternative? That and more coming up on this episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Logos. Learn more about the world's best Bible study software at logos.com/themove. We're going to be spending time today in John chapter 7, verses 1 through 13.
And as always, the question is, have you read it? If you haven't, it's in the description below. And we will put 10 minutes on the clock, and we will start that right now in 3, 2, 1. So, Feast of Booths. After this, Jesus went up in Galilee. He would not go about in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him.
Yeah, so John downplays the amount of time that's spent here because the time really isn't super important to him. But we know just how the feasts were outlined. This is roughly 6 or so months after the previous story.
Yes, because Passover is in the first month and the Feast of Booths is in the 7th month. So if Passover is the festival in the previous story, it's been about 6 months that have transpired between chapter 6 and chapter 7, at least.
Now, most people
Roughly.
know about the Passover because they've probably seen, which one is it? Is that the Prince of Egypt?
Prince of Egypt or
whatever movie it was
Ten
as a kid or
Commandments,
something like that, right? The Feast of Booths is a little bit less known. It's the idea that several months later, usually this was celebrated after agriculture season was all done, and it's actually this rest period where, hey, you know what? We worked hard, and now we're going to just rest for a little bit. The idea of booths or tabernacles is just like literally think of like tents. The idea is that they would go out into the wilderness, build a bunch of tents, and for about 7 days, they'd hang out there, and they'd rest a little bit, and they'd celebrate this feast together.
And it was a reminder of where God had actually delivered the nation from, so that at one point they rested in booths when he had delivered them from Egypt. So it's this transitional phase of, hey, remember where I have taken you from and where you are now, and remain in me as you continue to live out the story of my deliverance in your life.
Yeah.
Right?
One of the interesting tidbits that we pulled up was that there's a special caution and warning in the book of Zechariah, chapter 14, that says, hey, basically, if you don't observe this, then you're likely to suffer some penalties. But one of them is that you'll actually have shortage of bread.
Yeah.
Which is when you see it lined up with the previous chunk, the previous chapter, where it's all about Jesus giving bread. He's able to multiply bread. He is the bread of life. There's a little bit of a callback there.
Yeah. Zechariah 14, 1 through 21. But what we have here is an immediate sort of relational quibble. It's Jesus and his brothers. The Feast of Booths, we just gave you that. But verse 3, so his brothers said to him, hey, leave here, go to Judea, that your disciples may see the works that you are doing. So, you got disciples? Why don't you go back down? Now, it has to be clear that if the Jews are looking to kill him, that it's almost as though word is out on the street.
Yeah.
Right?
You got to lay low for a little bit.
Right? And we know that the word is out on the street by the time we get to verses 10 through 13, because people are grumbling, like, where is he? Is he going to show up? So this is known that Jesus is persona non grata to some extent, or that he's a troubler in some way.
He's also persona non grata, even to his very brothers. So you get the sense that they're like, hey, why don't you go over there since you're so important? And then in verse 5, for not even his brothers believed in him. So either they're just like teasing the guy, or they just like really just want to get rid of him. Think of like Joseph or something like that.
My man, I was just about to go there. Because think Old Testament elements. What is this story actually drawing back on?
It's drawing back to the idea that there's this promised brother, that there's this brother who's despised by the rest of the brothers, but has this very specific purpose and plan by God.
And what's interesting is that they make reference to his disciples, right? Mm-hmm. And thus far, it seems as though John has set up his disciples to be the 12 that actually go and establish something new in the same way that Israel was established via the 12
tribes.
Which are represented by Joseph's brothers. So there's this play, there's a contrast going on here. And verse 4, for no one works in secret if he seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world. And the text tells us that not even his own brothers believed in him. But Jesus, in keeping with the theme of John, and John constructs it, says, my time has not yet come.
And I love this emphasis that John consistently points us towards in the book of John. It's that Jesus has such a strong connection with the Father that he knows if he's acting ahead of God's will or if he's lagging behind, and he's able to, because of his connection with God, able to walk lockstep with him.
Yeah, and this idea of my time has not yet come, but your time is always here.
Yeah, that was an interesting piece, right? So you can do whatever you want because it's not for you you're different than what I am, right?
Yeah. Because and it's not it's not limited to time in the sense of at this appointed hour on September whatever at 9 a.m, year 31 or 33, that Jesus is gonna die, right?
Right.
It's more that the age, the epoch, right? The zeitgeist, if you will, the mood of the culture, the spirit behind it. My age, my time, the one I am going to usher in has not yet completely manifested, right?
Yeah. Because of the way that the world is receiving him or not receiving him.
Yeah. But your time, your epoch, your zeitgeist, your cultural mood is always here.
Because this is all you get. Because if you're of the world, then this is your time.
Yeah, and this is going to be highlighted in chapter 8, but we won't spill the beans quite yet. So Jesus is making this cosmic contrast with these Old Testament elements. Again, John masterfully putting all of these things together. And then this line of the world cannot hate you, but it hates me, precisely because these distinctions in the epoch. So he doesn't go up. And he remains in Galilee. But his brothers go up.
Then it goes on to say in verse 10, after his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he also went up, not publicly, but in private. Now, obviously, this isn't Jesus just being fickle here.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, I'm not going to go. All right. But we can understand this is what John is getting at, that Jesus gets some kind of sign or word from God. It says, all right, now go.
Mm-hmm.
And something I found that this word for he also went up is the same word that is used when it talks about Jesus ascending to the Father.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty cool. It's like, yo, clearly he has direction from God in this moment.
Because you always go up to Jerusalem.
Yeah, because literally Jerusalem was a set higher geographically.
Yeah, so even though it's in the south, right, where we think, oh, you go down. Like when I grew up in Massachusetts, and if I was going down to visit my family in Louisiana, it's like, oh, I'm going down to Louisiana because we're thinking topographically or like on the map, right?
Yeah. So actually, it would have been topographically. Jerusalem.
Yeah, topographically, it's up, right? Not I'm thinking cartography, right? Cartography map, right? So Jesus, you always go up, you always ascend to Jerusalem,
yeah,
right? Which is a cool little tidbit, but as he goes there, this is everybody's.
It's no longer grumbling, but it's whispering.
Yeah,
it's a little chisme.
Right, a little chisme. That's right. You must have dated a Latin girl.
Oh, I grew up in
SoCal. And dated a Latin girl. Anyway, so what happens is that the word is out. The word is out.
The word's on the street.
The word is on the street. That is this dude going to show up and manifest himself. And what's fascinating to me is just the tension that's being built here because his brothers aren't quite with him. Jesus had made the distinction between your age and my age.
Not only is his brothers not with him, but just in the previous chapter, the disciples are leaving him as well.
Yes.
So it seems like in this moment, while Jesus previously was falling into great favor, crowds were flocking to him to get their bellies filled. They hear about all these miracles and signs. It seems like Jesus has fallen out of the public eye.
And you would think that at this point, given the cause that he's trying to initiate, he is the fulfillment of what John was calling for, right? To turn the nation back to their God. And John was the precursor, right? You would think that Jesus would do something in order to garner a favorable public opinion because that's what you do when you're trying to lead a movement.
Yeah, because as far as turning the hearts back to God, it seems as though that Jesus is doing a very poor job.
Very poor.
From a human eye, right?
Yeah, right. He had garnered so much goodwill at the beginning with his signs and miracles. Now the religious leaders are looking to kill him. You would think that he would do something in order to be in the good graces of the public.
I think that there's a word there for us as well. Is that, because there's seasons where we have that are high seasons, seasons that are low seasons. And it's easy to get discouraged and to feel like you should give up in the low season. But Jesus isn't even worried about that.
Not worried about it.
What is Jesus doing? He's just sitting there communing with the Father, just waiting on God's leading. It doesn't even seem like he's stressed out about the loss of public appeal.
Yeah, because the highs and lows aren't what move him. Right?
Yeah.
And his movement isn't dependent on how they receive him.
His movement is only dependent on the word of God itself.
It's crazy because then he's living a life, and he's going to double down here in a second, where he's like, oh yeah, public opinion. Yeah, let me say a few things.
Yeah.
Right? And that is a word to us, because this is back to what we talked about several episodes ago with Pastor George. On what are you willing to stake your life on? Public opinion? What your family thinks about you?
No.
No, man.
What did God say?
Identity on the word.
Yeah.
Identity on the word.
That's the key.
We'll be back in the next 10. See you then.
Hey movers, I recently got to travel to the Logos headquarters and ended up recording several tutorials on how you and I can get more from our Bible study using Logos. To see the entire playlist of videos, visit logos.com/themove and get 10% off any Logos 8 product you want. logos.com/themove.